Working on part 2 of the Holton Alto Overhaul. Welcome to Hack a Week. Yes, it's all together and it's playable, but it's like an epic series of shots I did. It's well over 200 and some scenes. So dividing this up into 3 different videos. What you're about to see is part 2. So hope you enjoy it, and there will be one more after this. Got to get back to the editing now.
Well, I think I'm going to give it a go soldering these tone holes back in place. Pretty tricky stuff from what I've read, but I think I can pull it off. I've got to get the table keys removed. I've got to remove all these keys. So basically disassembling the whole lower left side. There is a little more detail on that split between the body and the tone hole stack right there. I can get a screwdriver in there on each one of these. Same thing on that one. So I'm thinking if I can pull the body up to meet the tone hole would be better than trying to push the tone hole down to the body, because that's going to distort it. Because as it is now, I was getting a good seal on the pads, so let's see if I can make a little tool for that. I'm going to remove the F sharp key, because then I can reach from the back side over to these two and see if I can push the body sheet metal up a little bit. Okay, let's reach in this way, give this a little push and a roll. See what we can do to push it up against the tone hole better. Look at that. Totally close the gap. Let's try this side. Lovely. Pushed it right back where it needs to be. Lovely. Pushed it right back where it needs to be. The next thing I want to do here is clean out both of these with a bit of sandpaper if I can. It's tricky to reach. Just want to get as much of the oxidized metal off from there as I can. These are cool. My wife Lisa just handed me one of these. They're for doing jewelry work, and it's just a little blob of an abrasive material on the end of a flexible plastic rod, handy for sanding in tight places. How about that? I've got some water soluble soldering flux here. I'm going to get a little bit of that down into this crack area on each one of these. Anything that's going to help the cleaning process. It's the first time I've used this kind of water-based one. We'll see how it works. Some of them are a little weird. Also going to put a bit on the outside too. Get after the back one here with a smaller brush. Okay, here we go. I'm going to try to keep the heat on the body more than the actual ring. See, what I need to do is get it in that crack and sweat it. I'm going to try putting the flame from underneath on the body for a bit. See what we get. Okay, let's get some of the solder off from there. Don't really need that in my way. Q-tip with some water on it. Wet rag also works if it's a larger project. Just got to get it to where the solder's molten, and then that's it. Just give it a wipe. It'll wipe right off. Okay, I'm going to try a little more flux while it's hot. In there, see if I can get that to clean up between the two pieces of metal. That's my problem right now. I've got solder getting onto the actual stack, as it were. I'm going to raise this up so I can get into that F-sharp hole with some heat from behind. See what that does. One more time with that approach. Okay, I'm getting kind of like some results here, but not what I really want. Cool this back off quickly. Maybe even needle file cleaner. More flux on everything. I've got a lot of solder in that hole. If I could get it to flow downhill a bit, it would do wonders. Let's get a little flux going here, which will kind of help guide it. The filler metal is always going to follow the heat. Remember that when you're welding with gas. Okay, let's preheat that area. Now let's get some heat on this area, and should be able to kind of paint it along with the torch. I grab the flux right now, give it a wipe, tilt it some more. I hope you can still see this. Okay, we're set up on my Tektronix 453 oscilloscope slash saxophone support device. I gotta clean up a bunch of solder on it, but not bad. Let's cool this off. Alright, one down, one to go. Let's see what we can do with this. Now this one I can't really get at the body, so I've just got to try to focus the heat right at the base, right on the sheet metal part down here in this hole. And more flux. We can get some solder started here somewhere. Alright, let's get rid of excess solder now. Looks pretty good. I think I've got it. Let's get these wires out of here. Now to sand everything smooth again in there. Don't want any lumps, bumps, weird transitions where the air comes out. I'm going to take a file and just touch it across here. Let it just slightly drag. More than anything, just to give me a witness mark of what's going on here. Ooh, there's a dent right there. Okay, I'm going to go back through the whole thing again, check all the keys, make sure they're sealing okay. My solder repair seems to be okay. No more light leaking out of the base of those sound holes. No more leaks. No more light leaks. Hopefully playable instrument now. So let's stick a neck and a mouthpiece and a reed on and see what we got.
1, 2, a 1, 2.
I'm gonna squeak a lot. That's how it is. Trying not to. Well, you know, at a certain point I said, let's just jump right in. So I've completely disassembled the whole thing. I was going to do just some minor repairs like this, but I figured let's just go ahead and we'll repad it, do the whole works to it, and share the experience here. I am by no means a saxophone repair technician, but I'm pretty handy with stuff. I've made some jewelry, and I know how to be careful with things, and engineering and aligning things, etc., etc. So this needs some work on, let's see, mostly it's going to be one post. Watch right there. Watch what happens. I'm going to wedge that camera up against the body. Okay, watch what happens with this. See that? That is not solid. And it looks like there's a little bit of indentation at the base where this took a hit like this or to the side. Some of this stuff was bent a little bit. The tubing where the long screw goes through was a little bit bent. I straightened those out already. It was a pretty quick fix, but that's got to be dealt with. There's also a couple of leaks in sound holes. I did a sort of a quick repair on one over here, but right here, if I was to put a leak light on it, you'd see it. You may be able to pick up the movement of it as I push on it. Yeah, see that? That is not sealed to the body. That's an air leak that makes the saxophone hard to play. That's pretty much what's going on with it. When I was playing it, I had to blow like hell to get any good sound, and it was crappy at best. So once that's done, I do resolder those. I've got to level those out. There's a lot of things to do. I got to regulate all the keys, which, by the way, are over here laid out. So this is like the right side, that's the left side, but you know, they cross over kind of. It's an upper lower, but anyway, that's everything right there. So one of the first things I need to do is just take a picture of these, plot them all out, so I keep track of what's what as I go, and measure every single one of these assemblies, every pad. I want to measure the inside diameter of the key and what size pad I need, whether or not it has a resonator. This is a 1925 sax, so from what I've read back then, they were kind of, some had them, some didn't. It just depended on who made the pads, I guess. Originally they were white, so I have read, again, still new at this. I will fully admit I'm on a big learning curve with this, but it's a lot of fun. So I've got to measure up all these pads now. Right, let's get started. So I've made this little pad pick tool out of an old spring from that York & Sons Alto I have. That's sharp and pointy. And I just stuck it in a dowel after I drilled a hole in it. Pretty simple. I'm going to use my hot air rework gun for, this is for surface mount components, repairing surface mount components on circuit boards. For those of you that haven't seen one, nice little heat gun. I've got it set at about 450 degrees right now. I like it. I can control it pretty easy. I can set it like this. I don't have to deal with the alcohol part of the flame and lighting it every time. Just turn it on, boom, out. Okay, let's measure up pad number 1. The inside diameter of the cup. Make sure I'm at 0. Looks like it's 16.2. I'm going to default toward the lower measurement, 16 millimeter. This tone hole is the first one I'm going to tackle. I'm going to put just some soft wire around the whole body and bring it up over the top of this. And what I'm going to do with this is use it to keep this in place, kind of pull it down with just a little bit of wire around it. Something to just keep tension on it while I'm doing the soldering, because things are going to change dimensions. Heat is going to be a big player in how stuff moves around, and it's kind of wild when you're applying heat to metal. Where's it going to migrate to? Lost one of my little spring guards. I'm going to put that back on. Incidentally, those are just off a WD-40 can. So I pinched that wire up nice and tight. And now we're ready to see what we can do about heat sinking everything else around this. Now, before this whole thing, years ago, I did some work with some copper where I was working on some architectural elements that went on a building, and there were things, you know, brazed together. Well, it was actually copper, phosphor, bronze, gas welded together, and there were things like within 2 inches of each other where I was working on one joint and I had to keep the other joint cool, and I found that just terry cloth towels, torn up, cut in strips, whatever you want, put a little water on that, get it wet, and if you just kind of wrap it around things nearby that you don't want to get hot enough to actually start melting their welded joint, whatever the material may be, solder or otherwise, and the rag will help to dissipate the heat via having to warm up all of this water. So I'm just going to wrap things up all around here with pieces of wet rag. Using a butane torch, Burns-O-Matic. Heat. We're going to have to get a lot of heat in here because it's going to be warming up all of these wet rags. All that water is just really going to eat up tons of heat. That's the idea. I can already see little beads forming right here. I don't know if you can see it, but I can. I'm going to get some flux on there now to let it start doing its thing, cleaning up the metal. That's what it do. Just a little more heat on that rim. I got to get it on the body because the body's going to take a lot more than what that little rim is, the sound hole. See, it's already cooled off enough that it won't melt the solder. Solder is one of those things where the metal needs to be hot enough to melt the solder you're trying to put on it. So again, with a little more of the flux, I really want to try to get this clean. What I'm trying to do is get it clean in that split between the actual sound hole, the tower, so to speak, whatever you want to call it. I want to get down in that void where there's no solder right now and see what I can do to get that nice and clean so that when I do apply some solder, it's going to just sweat itself wick right in there. I can see it starting to flow, so I'm going to give it a shot. Ah, it's close. It's very close. I think I just had a little bit of it wick in there. So tricky. Oh boy. Let's try a little more flux because the flux will actually help clean the metal. Once the solder gets on it, it'll just kind of draw it right to it. If I can get one spot to take, I can use that spot to then work my way around the whole thing. But I'm getting more on the body than I am. Yep, getting a little more into the body than I am on the actual joint. This is very tricky stuff. Gonna try a little brush with the flux. That can help sometimes because I can actually get it in there, and if I get it clean and I've got some solder there, you can get the solder, you can kind of coax it into where the flux just went. Almost like you're painting with it. And there it went, right there. See if we can get a little more actual solder in there. Oh, wow. So my biggest problem right now is the body of the saxophone not getting hot enough. There it goes, right there. It just happened. But I got to keep the heat on it. Can't back off at all. And I'm going to have a lot of cleanup to do here afterwards, but I got a trick for that too. Well, let's get everything out of the way and see what we got. Nothing else loosened up. That's the good news. I think we got a good joint there. Looks pretty solid now. Just need to do some cleanup. Next up is this post. You can see it's a little bit loose. This is going to require getting it all lined up with the main screw here that holds all the keys. Also removing a little bit of this dent that's in the body right here. Looking down into the body, the neck, see that dark area right there? That just doesn't look right. That's where that post got banged in. That's the dent we need to push back out. I'm going to make an attempt now to remove the dent at the base of this post. It's just a little dent. I've got a 3/8 extension in my vise. This is a pretty rudimentary dent removal device, but because it's bigger here than it is here, it gives me something to push against. So if we put this on here and line it up, I'm just going to hold on to everything down here. I want to push right in this area. If I push here and here, I might bend the entire tube. I don't want to do that. So let's just try pushing right in that area. Just by hand. Maybe get a finger right here. It's brass, so it should move pretty easily. Just some firm pressure. Let's see what we get. And indeed it did move a little bit. I can see the gap between the posts. Yeah, that did it. That's all it took, was just that little bit. And there's no gap there anymore. And now I can solder it up. We're ready to solder up this post. I've got the rod through here that holds everything in place as something to just make sure it doesn't move and it stays located where it's supposed to be. And we're going to get in there with some 60/40 solder and see what we can do to get that reattached. I've got all my little heat sink wet terry cloth pieces there. Hopefully that's going to keep everything from loosening up. Okay, let's get some heat on the body first. I'm going to watch for the solder to start blistering out around the sides. That's going to let me know that I'm getting pretty close to being hot enough here. You've got to watch that spring. I'm probably going to have to replace that spring. It's going to get so hot that I really do think it's going to lose its spring tension, because it's going to get annealed. I'm going to get some flux on here now. Just starting to melt. There we go. Come on, baby. Sweat in there. What I'm looking for is that little piece of solder to disappear and get sucked under the post. More flux. Different solder I've got here. It's got a different kind of flux in it. I'm really getting a lot of extra solder in here, but whatever it's going to take, got to get enough into that post. I'm going to try just keeping the heat on the post now. Remember, the solder's going to follow the heat. Oh, man, this is a tricky one. Okay, let's see if we can get rid of some of that excess solder now. Alright, while that is still really hot, I'm going to use some solder wick. This is for electronic stuff like circuit boards and whatnot. And it really works good on this too. I've got a soldering iron preheated here to about 700 degrees, which is way more than the temperature at which the solder is going to melt. What this stuff will do is, just like the name implies, it will wick the solder up onto this piece of braided copper, lift it off the surface. So it's a pretty easy way to clean off all the excess solder that I got on there. Well, let's take a look at our handiwork now that I got it all cleaned up. I'm pretty pleased with that. It doesn't look too bad at all. The thing about getting extra solder on this is, being as it's a silver plated saxophone, I can get away with it. If this was brass, I probably couldn't. And this is why I'm not a saxophone tech. I'm just a do-it-yourselfer, fix it with what I have at hand kind of guy. But you know what? That post is solid now. Looks good. We're just going to finish cleaning it up. I'm going to finish leveling out the tone holes, and we can move on to installing all the keys and getting them parallel with the tone holes before I put any pads in.
Well, that's a wrap. And I hope you stick around for part 3, which will be coming up pretty soon. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time.